Now, what's the news? What you got? Because I don't know anything. I'm in the dark just like you guys right now on this one.
No one knows this.
The text reads, I've got a little gem. So it's like, okay.
There's only me and a very, very select amount of people know this one. So here's a spicy one. So, obviously the story was last year, k0nfig stood in for Heroic. Then he was going to stand in for FaZe. Obviously both interesting ones. Then I did join NIP. We went like in this round. Here's what I heard, which was around the time that he got the offer from NIP, Vitality was interested in having him stand in because dupreeh has, I won't say what, but he's got a personal situation himself coming up. So dupreeh, he could have stood in for dupreeh. By the way, that's even like a classic role for role. I mean, maybe not now with current dupreeh, but the old dupreeh was an entry like k0nfig is. And this is the interesting detail. But because it would be standing, so it's like the FaZe one, even if you get the gig, you don't know if you're in for good. Because NIP said, like, no, we'll give you like a real long-term deal. That's why he joined NIP. And so crucially, that actually implies, this is what I heard, he is now a permanent member of NIP, as you see by the contract, and actually someone's getting kicked. Now, no one knows, is that Hampus? Does he not come back? Does he come back and for some reason Broline gets kicked roll for roll? Who knows? But I've heard basically, like, one, he could have been in Vitality, and two, this does mean he's in NIP for good now. Now, the reason that's spicy to me is, look, it would only be a stand-in, but if you think of some of the problems Vitality's had, guys, and part of their problem was they've been having such a hard time getting Spinks to be the other star with ZywOo. Well, imagine if you could somehow make k0nfig, Spinks, and ZywOo work in a team. And at the moment, people would say dupreeh's the worst fragger in the team and a bit lost in his role. Like, even if it was just a stand-in, the point is, that's the one where maybe it goes so well, they actually sign you for real. So it's very interesting one, because essentially I don't blame him. I remember a few months ago, he had no contract. He's not playing for anyone. He's hoping to get standing gigs. You have to sort of take the stability, but it would have been an interesting gamble if he could have done it. Or if the NIP deal didn't come, imagine seeing him stand in. I'd love to see that at least one time. It'd be interesting mix, wouldn't it?
It would have been, dude, it would have given us so many, it would have given us so much to work with, because all we can do right now is look at Vitality and say, dude, they don't have a chance. There's no firepower on the team. They literally live and die by ZywOo. If ZywOo doesn't turn up, the team has got nothing. It's so bad. So the Vitality project, as far as I'm concerned, you can almost just sack the whole team now and just rebuild around ZywOo and hope that you can come up with something better, because you're really not getting anything out of these players right now. That's really interesting to hear that k0nfig. I mean, for dupreeh, I mean that would have been a fantastic swap for Vitality. You bring k0nfig in; he already can speak English. He's used to playing on international rosters now. I mean, it could have been a total banger. That's a really big shame actually for Vitality the way that played out.
Here's a mad detail for you. Are you ready? Bearing in mind, Vitality is going to be playing in the playoffs of Katowice. So ZywOo is like a top player in the rankings. Spinks is the second rated one. He's like 45th or something.
They have
like you say, if you play like that, you have to understand, like, especially in the modern day with how much firepower some of the top teams, you can't win like that. Like ZywOo himself can't win the event on his own. Even Simple couldn't back in the day. Like, you're just not going to. Like, there has to be more.
And the big point with Vitality, and again with ZywOo, is he tends to drop off in big playoffs. Individually,
by the way, a lot of players do that. Like, it's actually why, in my opinion, Simple's goated. Like, most players, as you can imagine, in a major, you get a little bit worse. In a playoff match, you play a tiny bit worse. You play a better opponent, you play a bit worse. That's why, in my opinion, Simple is goated, because he's the only one I've ever seen which did it no matter what, innit? He just nearly always fragged out, didn't he?
Yeah, it doesn't matter where he is in the tournament. He's still competing just as good. Yeah, that's the thing that we can that I'm actually very much looking forward to here. I don't think that Vitality will go deep. I don't think Vitality are going to do much. But
I think they're on the wrong side of the bracket. It's a hard one. I mean, they might even lose to Liquid. It's plausible.
Yeah, I think they will lose to Liquid. I think Liquid beat them, and Liquid go up against G2. You get Yakinder versus G2, and it'll be a banger. But I don't think Vitality are going to do anything. But I guess in a sense, I'm interested to see what kind of level ZywOo brings, because I don't think anybody else on that team is going to do anything. There's too much pressure.
By the way, one thing I think we should also give him mad props for is the same thing I used to give mad props to Nico and Simple when they did this, which is the one thing a fan doesn't understand is this. They think, right, when you're the star player in a bad team, or like in this case, just firepower, obviously the players are objectively bad. They're just not fragging out. They think you can just be selfish. So actually it's easy. You just think, oh, I'm going to lose anyway, so I'll frag out. No, most top players, even really good players, their morale would just get crushed after a certain amount of time. What makes these guys I just mentioned alien is somehow even when the rest of the team goes to shit, they somehow don't break mentally. And the reason it's mad impressive with ZywOo is, look how fucking young he is still. Remember, he's only had like 2 years of land, basically, or 2.5 years or something like. it's actually very impressive that, like, look, he has bad games, but I don't think it's just because of the team. Like, I'm very impressed he can sort of do the Sisyphean thing of keep pushing the fucking boulder up the hill, even though you know at the end you don't win and it rolls back down again. Like, that takes a lot of mental fortitude. Like, just props for that alone.
He is such a mad lad when you look at his stats as well. I mean, it's just like, okay, if you do all matches, right? Like, oh, 134 rating, dude, that's a lot. Okay, fine. No, put it on LAN, 6 months, 134. He's still just such a monster, an absolute.
It's absurd
monster.
To average that over that span of time. That's impossible. It's only him and Simple can do it, basically, and the
basically. Well. So it's all Vitality I've got going for him. Vitality also, I mean, if you look at the bracket that they had, I mean, that's the whole thing with Group B is that it wasn't really the most competitive group. Yep. You were going to have a few easy paths through, and Vitality definitely had one. I mean, they go up against NIP, where new roster again, k0nfig, a lot of shift on that team. Still figuring out what the hell's going on. So Vitality, in theory, easy starting match to kick things off. And then you're going up against Fnatic again, another team that's still in the mix, that's still trying to figure out what they're doing and what level they have. It was still close, i.e. Fnatic, almost took it in 2 if they didn't lose Overpass. I mean, there's a realm where Fnatic are maybe eliminating Vitality 2-0. So I mean, if you're with the player like ZywOo on your team and you're almost getting eliminated by Fnatic, it's like, dude, Vitality, what are you doing? And then of course they get dumpstered by Heroic, which is exactly what should have happened. Which is exactly where it is. Heroic are the clear favorites of that group.
See more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or be a pleb and don't.